When did you start?
When did I start? Well, I've been at CMS since 2003, so I'm just on a detail to the Affirmative Employment Group. And then Susanna moved over to Reasonable Accommodations for detail.
Oh,
So I'm just kind of backfilling what she was doing.
I see.
Hi.
Sorry, sorry,
Oh,
Gary.
not
This
at
is
all.
Hi, I'm
Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Just,
Lindsay, I'm Gary.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
she's
you too.
another interpreter, so I'm just catching her up on what to expect.
Fantastic.
So it's just this. She told me I'm not supposed to, but I can. I don't mind. Okay, it's fine. Someone else is going to come. It's just. Hey Danielle, are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. This is Patrick. I was just saying it's about 12 o'clock. Maybe we could go ahead and get started.
Sounds great. Hi, did you guys need me to introduce the call and pass it over?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Danielle Dorsey, and I'll be your conference moderator for today. Welcome to today's conference call. All lines have been muted to prevent any background noise. After each speaker's remarks, there will be a brief question and answer session. At that time, I will instruct callers how to ask a question. I'll now turn the floor over to our first presenter. Please go ahead.
This is me.
Yeah, that was
That's you, Gary.
If we're ready to start, my name is Gary Norman. I'm a senior assistant attorney advisor here at CMS. I'm doing a detail with my friends in minority health, working on disability policy issues. So I thought an honored anniversary would be great to just have an informal chat today to make sure that all of us know that DERG is still active and that we're doing things. Indeed, I'm very honored that my friend Malia Jensen will be doing the Lunch and Learn sessions in August on Section 504, but more of that will be coming out soon once it's been approved. But today I thought we could have an informal chat because so much of disability rights and ensuring access can be better achieved through partnerships. I thought I would talk a little bit about my partnership with Pilot and open it up mostly today to a interactive conversation about the power of partnership in advancing disability rights, and then more specifically the power of partnerships in working a working animal, in my case a guide dog. Unless other people have agenda items, that's kind of what I envisioned for today. Why don't we go around the room? I don't think there's that many people in the room. Perhaps there are more people.
Until then, lay home.
Somebody
more people online. If we could, as a ground rule, kind of silence our phones or telecommunications devices, that would be helpful. Thank you. How about my friends in the room? Who do we have here?
Nick Antlitz, part of CM.
Nice to see you, sir.
And I'm Patrick Squire, and I work in the affirmative employee group, leading this project in the Office of Equal Opportunity and Civil Rights.
Thank you
My
for
name is-
attending.
I'm Deanna Miller, and I work in the Office of OEOCR. And as I told you before, I'm kind of new to all of this, so I will be assisting you in the future.
Look forward to working with you. Anybody else?
And that's it in the room.
That's it. How about online? Or via the telephone, I guess.
We just had somebody else come in the room
Hey,
as well.
good, good
Hello.
afternoon, Linda Anders.
Hello, nice to see you.
You too.
I don't think there's any initial round of questions, so I'll just chat briefly and then we could delve into any kind of questions. This is meant to be an open forum for any kind of questions. One thing I know or learn about new friends, sometimes they wonder about Pilot, and certainly more, especially since he's been seen a little bit on screens here at CMS. They like to know about what it's like to acquire a new dog and what it means to have a relationship with a working animal. For me, I thought it was apropos to talk about Pilot because he's my second dog, and between these two dogs, the other dog also was my sidekick here at CMS and HHS. I've learned a lot about communication and leadership. I've improved as a person, I think. It's kind of like Charles Dickens at the end of A Christmas Carol. He says that Scrooge is the better person for having known Tiny Tim. I think I'm a better person for having known Mr. Slanger and Pilot. I've learned skills like communication. It's an art form to communicate with an animal that's on your side all the time, especially in terms of safely and independently travel with a guide dog through the community and all the places that I've gone and will continue to go. There's leadership lessons. Indeed, I brought up an article from Fortune today in their series called Tools of the Trade. The CEO who writes in that particular column within the last few years he published it says that he learned communication skills, he learned leadership lessons from working with the dog, namely being present in the moment is a key leadership lesson we certainly are teaching in the Leadership Institute here at CMS. I've also had the opportunity to do my own unique branding, whether it's in animal law or bringing Pilot and Langer or Langer and Pilot to mediation sessions and being a mediator, federal mediator with a dog in the room. It adds a plus factor, if you will, to the room. So I believe that while my leadership journey is still ongoing and I'm still learning, I think certainly it's added to me as a lawyer with a disability who seeks to lead others and bring people together. That's probably enough about myself. I'm just really honored that as we celebrate the anniversary of the ADA, we can talk together in forums like this and bring people together, people without disabilities and people with disabilities, to learn about how we partner together more collaboratively on advancing a positive conversation about employees with disabilities here at the agency. And hopefully, from my perspective, more of those will have working animals or service animals here at the agency. I thought I would talk little today and we would talk more to each other. So I would love any random reasonable question about animals or working animals or guide dogs, more especially in terms of employees with disabilities here at CMS, and then more specifically about Pilot or Langer was my dog before him. If we get stuck, I have some set questions that we can use, but I'm hoping that this will be rowdy, perhaps.
Well, I can start off too. I am currently in the process of going through, I'm actually in the waiting period, waiting for assistant dog. I'm in a wheelchair and I hope to, have one in the near future. I'm on the list. It's just a matter of waiting right now.
Fantastic.
And doing the training, obviously. I was just wondering if there was any, to begin anything that I would need to start to process up until, you know, I receive my dog or when I finally bring the dog in for the first time.
You mean for being a worker in CMS?
Yes, yes.
Paperwork, there's probably paperwork.
I would imagine that's part of the reasonable accommodations process. And even though you don't have one now, I don't think it hurts to start that conversation, to start that process. Certainly, I encourage these conversations to happen on an employee manager level. So you might start with your manager saying, I'm thinking about this.
She's right next to me.
So that's fantastic. I myself have been very positive to have, fortunate to have a positive working environment, both at the attorney advisor now and OMH. I've truly been blessed to be around, quote, dog people, so that has helped a lot. But certainly when I started thinking about getting my first dog, I did it as part of a sort of adding it to my training plan as a PMI. And I kind of started that both as a reasonable accommodations process and then as a training request when I was a PMI. So never hurts to start these conversations early, right? And certainly, you know, once you have a dog, I always try to, as much as I still need to be a mentor, I try to mentor other young assistance dog handlers. So I'm always happy to sit down and tell you what I've learned, which may not be worth anything, but you know, it never hurts to stand on the shoulders of other people.
It's a whole lot easier talking to somebody that's been through something than trying to learn it yourself. So I will probably take you up on that.
I hope I've learned a few things now. 2 dogs. I myself am starting the process to acquire a 3rd dog.
Where do you, what program, foundation, organization?
To date, both of my dogs, Langer and Pilot, have been from Guide Dogs for the Blind in California, specifically Northern California and Marin County. This 3rd dog most likely will be from Guiding Eyes in New York. I'm mostly set on going there because they have a quick retrain process that's in-house for 8 or 10 days, and then possibly I could come back here and train on my own terms for the last set of hours that's required, both in Baltimore and DC, to do like really high-end urban training.
Gotcha.
Do you do that by yourself, or is there a training group you go with?
It would be Guiding Eyes, so they would send instructors here to the area when I come back. And then when I'm there at Guiding Eyes, it's in residence training, so they have kind of dorm apartments and a whole kind of set schedule.
This is Patrick here. I'd like to add or clarify. So the reasonable accommodations program, here at CMS, we do not provide service animal dogs. Is that correct? Just
Right.
want to clarify. Right. So that means if you would like to have a guide dog come here to CMS, there is a process we would have to go through reasonable accommodations. Obviously, they would approve it, but it's a process, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just wanted to
that's
make sure
what
we were
we're
clear
saying.
on that.
Yeah. I think he, with this sir here, was saying he's going to an external organization.
I'm going to, just for informative purposes, I'm going through Canine Companions for Independence,
Sure.
and they have regional offices, New York, California, somewhere in Texas and Florida, I think. So
Sure.
anybody that is anywhere can reach out to them.
This is Linda again. I have an administrative question. Does the reasonable accommodation process allow for unique leave opportunities? Like if I have a newer employee that doesn't have a lot of sick leave or annual leave banked, are there any suggestions on how to encourage participation with the training and help them not go bankrupt in the process?
Yeah, I think I have views on that, perhaps better stated offline, but the ultimate thing is if they'd have to use annual leave to do training, and if they don't have enough of that, then at least what my boss did is I took some leave without paying when I exhausted that.
All right.
That's a great question. I can share that with our RAP team, the Reasonable Accommodations Program team, and let them know that there are those concerns and see, what can be done about it.
Awesome. So this is Deanna Gary.
Yes.
In regards to your service dog or pilot, a lot of people like dogs and are pretty friendly with them. Are there any do's and don'ts in regard to service dogs as far as just going up and petting them and so forth?
Sure. I think unfortunately our society has become so single tracked that you have to say yes or no. I take an expansive view of it. The general rule would be, certainly sort of don't touch them, don't play with them, don't talk to them. But I see service animal, most issues is not that non-complex. I see working an animal in public a great opportunity for a conversation about animals and B partnerships. So I tend to be more expansive as a tool for social capital of allowing people who are well-intended, who are dog people, quote unquote, to have some interaction with them. My exception is if it's a safety issue. So if I'm guiding onto the marked train, I wouldn't allow somebody to pet him, for instance. If pilot is stressed out here because of the heat or otherwise, I don't necessarily let people have as much access to him. The difference is if he's in a meeting, if it still seems professional enough, if it's social capital building, if it builds connectivity for me as a lawyer with a disability with another colleague, then yes, of course I let somebody pet him. I think the trick is finding ways to have the conversation when it's helpful and not helpful for that kind of interaction with a colleague.
Thank you.
How about somebody online? We don't have any questions online yet. Is there anybody online?
How can you not have questions? I have 1,000.
Hello?
Hello, my friend.
Hello?
Yes, hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
No. Oh, okay. The microphones have been turned off for everyone on the phone. So you have no idea we're here, but we cannot hear you. You need to move the microphone on the table closer to where people are speaking.
These phones aren't hooked up. It's hooked up through here, so I guess we need to.
Hello?
I can speak. So, sorry about that.
Yeah, somebody turned off all the phones so that none of us could say anything. Anyway, this is Anita. Hi. I have a question about just day-to-day etiquette at work.
Yes.
Being in a scooter in the building, and you, Gary, with a guide dog, or it might be someone else there with a guide animal, or even someone who is vision impaired with a cane.
Yes.
What do those of us in wheelchairs and scooters, do we stop in a hallway and let you pass? Do we stay to the right? What do you want us to do so we are not impediments to you?
Well, A, thank you for that question. I don't know how much you heard, but I'll speak up. But B, I think that's
Thank you.
an adequate question is always a good thing. I would say generally it's a two-way street. So A, what can I do for you as being somebody who's mobility impaired? That's more important. But B, for me, my sense is I try to treat any kind of a wheelchair, electrified or otherwise, almost as I would a bike or a vehicle, which A, in preference, I would prefer you to say coming on your right or coming on your left, whatever it might be. And then B, for myself, I try to give usually bikes and motorized type vehicles, a little bit more of the right of way, if you will. Certainly not necessarily stopping like I would if I were in a non-curb situation, like walking next to a verge where there's no sidewalk. If a car came at me, it's guide dog procedure to stop, turn left in, which puts me closest to the car and protects Pilot or another dog in the future. I certainly probably wouldn't necessarily do that here at CMS in terms of interacting with a electrified wheelchair, but I certainly try to either kind of let you, Anita, pass me or somebody else who might be in that kind of mobility device have the right of way first. But in situations where that's not possible, I would say, give me some kind of auditory information that maybe you're passing on the right or left. Or at least let me know if I can do something to be more respectful of your space. That's something that I've tried to hopefully do my year here in DERG, is to bring us together and maybe have conversations how we can collaborate together. So God knows I'm not perfect. If I can do something to respect your space better, Anita, and all the Anitas of the world, let me know.
That's great, Gary. Thank you. What I will do in the future is speak up and let you know where I am. Such as, Gary, I'm coming towards you on your left, which would be my right, rather than just sneaking up behind you or something.
Or you could just bring snacks for Pilot.
Nice.
That's a good idea. Thank you. Appreciate the advice.
You're welcome. Anybody else online?
Is it okay to ask a question about pilot training having
Yes.
nothing to do with our disabilities?
Yes, keep them going.
How does he learn his way around for you when you're going places?
So I think that to new friends like you, Anita, is understandable, but perhaps a misnomer. It's more in IAADP, which is one of the education associations that actually does some best practices for training for people who train their own service animals. They like to use the words partnership and independence. And while that sounds like a cliche, it's true. So even for a guide dog team, I'm the captain of the team. I tell Pilot where to go, but Pilot's enabled through his training, very specific training, to show me things like find this door, find the stairs. He can show me an obstacle. He's very good at this, actually. I can tell him, find me a chair. He can also alert me to, should we be stepping off a curb outside in the public space, whether maybe I've not paid attention or I've not heard it, a car is coming in front of us, and he can actually engage in what's called intelligent disobedience to stop and keep me safe as a car or another vehicle's approaching me. But ultimately, as the captain of the team, while he can do those individual task work plan items for me, I have to know where I'm going. So I can't tell Pilot, well, I could even do this a little bit, but generally I can't tell Pilot find the cafeteria if I'm, say, at the dogwood gate. I have to know that I'm walking through the dogwood gate, I'm making a 90-degree angle, I'm walking down the sidewalk, I'm walking another probably 2,000 steps to the center building into the front doors. That's more my role. His role is to show me the curb, to hook me up in a linear fashion from curb to curb, even to find me the door, even to find me the magnetometers in the center building. So in that way, it's like a team swimming together. We both complement each other, but it's all, as the captain of that swimming team, it's my job to direct us and to guide us, to navigate us. And his job as Sancho for me is to tell me when I'm just a little bit off base and not doing something correctly, and to try to show me some impediments in our way.
That's great, thank you. And it doesn't distract you if somebody is chatting with you as you're trying to locate, since you're paying attention to turns and counting steps.
Not like anything else. There's always exceptions, but I would say no. I'm a multitasker.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure I didn't cause any problems.
No, never.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
This is Linda again. I have one if everybody online's had an opportunity.
Okay.
Again, you can tell I'm a manager person, but my hope and dream is that Nick gets a service animal for a variety of reasons, but just making his life easier at work is obviously the primary one.
Sure.
How do you, I know, I'm sure, suppose the answer is negotiate, but people with allergies or just downright fear of dogs? What, do you just sit down and make them safe, or especially we have very narrow cube rows, and probably like everywhere else, they're not very
It
good.
is a challenging issue. There's no silver bullet for that issue, except an allergy, of course, itself could be so severe that it's a disability that requires its own reasonable accommodations. So the point, whether it's that large or if it's the small issue, I just don't like dogs. It's about having crucial conversations and trying to meet the needs of everybody. On a personal level, I try to be as respectful as possible. And so if I'm around a colleague who has allergies, now I do have colleagues who actually have legitimate allergies, and yet they love Pilot. So I know that while maybe I could let Pilot be a little bit more rowdier around somebody else in the office, the person who has an allergy in my office is one of my best friends at CMS. I know that I have to kind of watch what Pilot's doing around her. I have to make sure that Pilot maybe doesn't get as close to her as I would let him, somebody else who might want to pet him who doesn't have an allergy. Certainly with that person with the allergy, we've been at the Supreme Court together, we've been in DC together, so we've had the opportunities for her to express she has an allergy issue, me to accommodate her. And yet somehow she respects that I have an assistance animal or assistance dog.
It's a little bit better than what I was imagining in my head, but it's good.
But cube space, cube size, and GSA issues is another whole set of issues, because it does play into that.
And I imagine that they're not jumping up and being unruly is a big thing for people that have fear. But the less noticeable is probably better.
The less noticeable, sure. Which is a guide dog responsibility anyways as a handler. Keep them under control, keep them work appropriate, I guess.
He looks like he's under control, Gary.
He does get rowdy. He does get rowdy sometimes. Sometimes I let him run in the office.
Why don't you work with me?
Of course, he's a tired old dog.
Yeah, I've watched him gray over the,
Yeah.
most recently, I guess. Nuzzle's little.
He does not move fast anymore, that's for sure. Not like he used to when he was young. My first dog, Langer, was a little warrior dog. He was never a fast mover, but when I got Pilot, Pilot was fast like a jet and very hyper. It took a lot of much more high maintenance to kind of do the training that you do as a young dog handler with him. Today, though, he's working definitely a lot more like Langer, who moved in the world at his own pace.
How long do they usually, are they usually considered working?
7 to 9 years. 9 is fairly long on the upper end of the scale. I worked Langer for about 9.5. but the last year of his working career, I was doing a post-grad degree in DC and I couldn't afford the time to go back to school. So I kind of overworked Langer. I promised Pilot I wouldn't do that. So I think his working career will be more in the 7-year range. I'm looking to retire him either this November or maybe March next year.
Gary, is there any cost to you associated with getting a new dog?
Whatever you want to chip in fundraising wise, and last time I paid for my tickets out to California, but beyond that, no. Every guide dog school that I'm aware of is a nonprofit organization and the cost to the end user is free. Which, whether it's the lowest end of the range or the highest end of the range, it's a significant. On one hand, you can see it as a gift of society. On the other hand, we can see it as a type of societal benefit because if we enable people with disabilities, in my case, people who have vision issues, to be employable and employed to be independent, then we actually reap the benefits as a society in terms of not having as many people unhealthy, as many people on basically disability welfare. So the lowest range is 50 grand a dog. The highest range, which when I was on the advisory board of my school, whether this is true or not, we said that it cost about $100,000 per guide dog to train and place them in the field.
Would your successor be the same breed or a different breed? Or do you ask for this breed, or can you explain a little bit about, like, what if you got a Yorkshire Terrier like little Lacey?
I've never, there's sort of a set universe of breeds.
Mhm.
So a terrier would, as far as I know, for this kind of service animal, for a guide dog. There are certainly therapy dogs, there are other kinds of assistance dogs that could be any other kind of range of breeds or dogs. But for guide dogs, it's a set universe. Typically Labradors, Golden Retrievers, some sort of cross. In Pilot's case, he's called a Goldador, which means a 50-50 cross between a Golden Retriever and a Labrador. Some schools, they're rare these days, but some schools do use German Shepherds. One school in Connecticut uses mostly all German Shepherds or is all German Shepherd oriented. And then other schools maybe have the occasional collie or something. But typically you're going to see some sort of a squat little Labrador, or you're going to see some sort of Goldador or semi-cross of a Golden Retriever and a Lab.
And the service animals are matched to your needs and their abilities. Is that how?
For guide dogs, definitely so. It's a long process to apply. It's a set process. And there are a number of conversations that happen, both telephonically and then also a home study, if you will. And through that process, a matching process, they try to make a determination of your needs as a handler, and then they try to get a sense of what kind of dog will suit you best based on the conversations you've had.
Do you have to undergo that process all over again?
I do, every time.
Every time.
Which is good because, at a certain time at a certain school, there's certain dogs in the line ready to be trained and placed, and every dog is a different creature because every dog, in my view, is a sentient being. So they all have different personalities, they have different needs and wants, they have different abilities, and the handler coming in has a different lifestyle than handler B, so it's really important to try to get the best type of match possible.
I think a good example of that is I knew Langer when Gary had first got Langer. Look at Gary laughing. He knows what I'm going to say. And Langer, if you think back to the way Gary was when he got Langer was like a swinging single dog, okay? He was meant for a younger guy who had a different lifestyle, and now look here at Pilot, okay? We got, and Gary's in a different place in his life, so I think what you said is a good example of how dogs need to be matched to where people are in their life and in their level of disability or, many factors.
Well, certainly, some guide dog schools, so GDB, where Langer and Pilot have been from, they're starting to do some work with diabetes dogs in California. And I believe Guiding Eyes does some multiple disability work with guide dogs. actually for you, sir, for some people wheelchairs who also have vision issues.
Yeah, I can speak to, in terms of the personality thing, they had me come up for a day for a one-on-one interview, and it was kind of the last part of the process. It was kind of both to see that I was committed to it and, you know, could benefit from it, as well as to kind of gauge my personality and my lifestyle, so that throughout the process they could, you know, maybe identify a particular dog that would work better with me as opposed to someone else.
Do retiring dogs help train the incoming recruit?
So, formally no, but this is kind of a psycho-spiritual question. So I believe yes, because I've been spiritually gifted, and whether people seem to want to hear this or not, I've been spiritually gifted to work with all kinds of different animals in the outdoors. So animals have always kind of spoken to me. So A, that's why it meant really, it made sense for me to get a guide dog, and B, in working Langer and Pilot, I have been able to be connected to them. So I do believe that Langer mentored Pilot, like and he had kind of picked on Pilot too. So it's like you're like a cranky old boss guy and you get a new recruit. And Pilot was so hyper and so enthusiastic when he was young. He'd come home, I'm a new attorney, and we went to school today, and I'm a Mason now. And Langer would be, hey, Junior, I did it first.
Yeah. I mean, that's how my family dogs are. We, as you know, we bring them into our lives. We tend to get a younger dog in the later end, much later end of our other family dog, and they totally keep them in line. You know, like, don't do that, don't get up there. And it's an interesting social transition just from our perspective.
It was, I think it was challenging because with retiring a dog, I'll keep Pilot as a pet as well. When you retire a dog and then you have a new dog, it takes about 2 years to acclimate to a new dog partnership. So all your attention is on all the new experiences, whether it's flying to Cleveland was one of Pilot's first trip, about a month out of guide dog school. All that attention is on him, trying to figure out what he's about, what he needs, how he communicates, what makes him happy. And so then you feel naturally maybe like you neglect your old partner. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, if you have a retired guide dog like I did with Langer and working Pilot, then at the end of Langer's life, it became all about Langer when he was a geriatric hospice patient, if you will. So the last couple of months were all about Langer every day. And I know that Pilot felt neglected. These things are very tough, but I think it's a sense of martial honor to take care of one's old partner, because you never leave a brother behind. But at the end of Langer's life, in terms of the mentorship stuff, I did see Langer start to transition towards the Pilot. At some point he said, you're in charge now, Pilot, you have to take care of Gary.
Did he adapt well to his retirement, Gary? I mean, because he went from working one day to, you know, like a CMS employee, right?
Hey.
Just like walked out the door, you know, he wasn't doing his job anymore, but he was still collecting his retirement benefits, right?
Yeah, yes and no. He was very tired. By May, the second semester of my LLM program, Langer was just plumb exhausted from going here to Penn Station, the MARC train, the metro, a little bus, and went from Tinleytown to WCO when it was up on 48th Street and Massachusetts Avenue. He was just exhausted. So for the first month or so, he was kind of like, yeah, somebody else can do all this work. And then it kind of hit him, I think, like, wow, I can't really go to all the same places anymore. And I think that's what kind of made him, not that he wasn't surly to begin with, but that made him kind of cranky around Pilot.
He probably gained some of his strength back too, so
Yeah.
a little rest makes you edgy.
Yeah. Well, what Ellen is saying is Langer was always a warrior dog, so he was always a little bit surly. I always respected he was like a Klingon. You had to earn his love and respect.
Sorry.
He always gave you a bad eye if he didn't like you.
Nice.
How do you deal with toileting dogs?
I don't, actually, there's one, when I first got Langer, I thought it was gonna be a big deal because in guide dog school, they're trying to train you how to deal with that, so they're very strict and it's like 6 a.m., you gotta take your dog out. 8 o'clock a.m., before you get on the car or the bus or whatever to go train. 10 a.m. when you get back from training. Noon before you go to lunch. And it's really not that specific except for some things, so obviously I take this as a model for handling a dog or otherwise. It's the model of the ancient cavalry. It was horse, saddle, man. So my dog's needs are more important than my own. So I feed Langer first or Pilot first in the morning. He goes potty first before I eat, before I go potty. But beyond the basics, he eats in the morning, he eats at night, he goes potty. It's far more organic and conversational. I can literally both sense based on behavior and also what they're saying to me if they have to go outside. But also, I know there's certain times of the day when he needs to go out more often than not. Most guide dogs, however, that being said, if they've gone out in the morning and you have a meeting that's 3 hours long, hopefully if you're taking good care of that dog and the dog is healthy, it's not going to have an accident in a 3-hour meeting with the administrator.
What about bathing and grooming and vet care?
You can never, it's also a responsibility too that young guide dog handlers, myself included when I was a young guy, you're always continuously learning about the heft of that responsibility. So Pilot has a regular veterinarian, he has regular vet appointments. Certainly the acuity of that increases when they become a geriatric dog like it did with Langer. The grooming is a certainly regular responsibility, so is bathing. I probably don't brush Pilot enough as I could. I try to shoot for Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday for brushing Pilot. We typically bathe Pilot once a month or once and a half, like once every month and a half. Certainly when I brush him, I brush his teeth. Try to clean his ears on a regular basis. And then I try to find the right balance. This kind of circles back to a question from before. I try to find the balance between being go, Gary, and letting Pilot also, even if he's just in the office, letting him be a dog who is treated kindly and has time to play and relax.
Does he eat while he's at work here, or does he just eat at home?
I split feed him in the morning and in the evening, which is a typical term for such things. And I do give Pilot snacks. Pilot is food centric, even more so now that he's approaching retirement. But food has always worked for him as a motivator. So if he does do a good job, I give him like dog cookies and different things. But I also allow him a little bit of human food. So Pilot likes carrots, he likes popcorn. Of course, I have the same colleague who has an allergy. Sometimes my colleagues can break the rules and give him more human food than I would like, but you know what? That's just a way of organic relationships.
I feed people when I want them to like me, so.
Funny story though, I orchestrated officer night for Mount Moriah, I think 2 Saturdays ago. I was at Towson Tavern, then I left with my Mason brother and we walked up to his parking garage to get his car, and I heard music coming from my right shoulder, so I said, let's stop there. So we're at the table, and then this couple to the right of us, the lady asks, like, literally, could I give New York Strip the Pilot?
Nice. Who says no to that? You mentioned dental care, Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't start brushing Lacey's teeth, probably till she was a couple years old, but now I actually brush her teeth every day.
So did you start out, I know other people have told me they have trouble with dental care, but did you start out brushing Pilot's teeth and Langer's teeth at the very beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. 'cause
We learned that in guide dog school.
Yeah, she's very tolerant. I mean, she actually trots over to me and opens her mouth. But I found it's really made a difference in her dental health and her dental hygiene. Does everybody who has a guide dog do such a good job? You know, I guess.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
That's certainly something that we're admonished to do
Oh, good.
in guide dog
Okay.
school.
Dental care. Great.
And then certainly in January, I probably wouldn't have done it if he hadn't had the need for another surgery anyways. So I did have Pilot's teeth professionally cleaned at the veterinarian back in December. Well, Pilot snoring, I don't know if that's a sign of today's conversation or not. Any other questions? Looks like that's a wrap, perhaps.
Gary, I just want to thank you for your patience with all of us with when we're asking you if we can say hello to Pilot when you're walking around. You're very kind to everyone.
I really try. I mean, some days maybe I'm a little bit more strict. You know, Langer and Pilot, they have different, just like we talk about different segments of the brain. You know, Langer is one part of my brain and Pilot's the other. Langer is the aggressive warrior attorney in me, Pilot's the diplomat in me. So hopefully I'm more the Pilot and less the Langer with everybody when it comes to dog issues.
This was great. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope it helped. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Jeez, Gary.
What's that?
Trying to get him off.
Oh, is he tired?
Oh.
You so tired?
Yeah.
Buddy?
Wake up. Be careful though, buddy.
Buddy? Yeah, watch my leg. Hey,
Oh, see, you still groggy? Yeah, we just.
Sign it up.
I just don't like